Welcome to another program in our Medicine and Society series. We're so glad today to have three of our most eminent doctors in the area of obesity here in Charlotte with us. This is Dr. Marlowe. Could you tell our audience a little bit more about where you're from?
Well, Dr. Thomas Marlowe, and I'm at Dr. Marlowe's Weight Loss Institute. I'm originally from Indiana and moved to Charlotte to open up my own practice, and I loved it here. It's fantastic.
Great. And Dr. Mehta?
So I'm Dr. Shivani Mehta, and I am a pediatrician at Levine Children's Hospital. I work at Teen Health Connection and Myers Park Pediatrics Clinic, and I also work at the Healthy Child Advisory Team.
Okay, you're busy too, both of you. And Dr. Vollinger?
Yeah, David Vollinger, thank you for having us, Rosie. I am with Southeast Bariatrics. I'm a bariatric surgeon. I have been very passionate about the treatment of obesity for a lot of years. I actually currently am the medical director of the Presbyterian Bariatric Center, which is what we're trying to treat the disease.
Trying to treat the disease. Okay, so let's get to this topic because I know our audience is going to be interested in it. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Marlowe, Tom, whatever, okay. We have a weight-obsessed society. Everybody's wanting to lose weight. I mean, one of the most popular TV shows is Biggest Loser, and everybody's got to see that every week. And it gets a bit, crazy at times. And all the magazines, all the newspapers, every day we're bombarded with this. And sometimes you get the impression that the information out there is a mixed bag. Some of it true, some of it false, some of it myth, some of it's fiction. Could you help us sort out all that data we get about weight loss?
Well, that's a very good question, and I'm glad you asked. There's at least 3 big myths that I want to tell you about. I have patients all the time who come to see me because they've been trying their hardest to lose weight, and they're failing because they're following the advice that's simply wrong. I have a great example. This young woman in her 40s had been going to the gym daily for at least an hour, maybe even 2, for about 10 years, carefully counting her calories so that she'd burn more than she ate and following all the general recommendations like eating oatmeal for breakfast, but she couldn't lose those last 20 pounds. She came to my office and we did some blood testing, and we found out that she was eating all the wrong foods. So after giving her the correct diet for her, she lost those 20 pounds in 3 months.
What were the wrong foods?
Well, it turned out that she had a problem called insulin resistance. And so the things like the oatmeal and the things like the whole grain breads that she'd been eating were actually thwarting her efforts to lose weight.
Oh my gosh.
So right now, this does a great job of illustrating, well actually, I should point this out, when we had her eating foods that were not contributing to her insulin resistance, we actually had her eating a diet where she's eating more than she was eating before. So that's really the first myth, which is the calories in, calories out myth.
Well, that's good to know because I thought that was true. So.
Well, that one's simply wrong, and we physicians have known this for a long time. Not only do foods matter, but what medications you take matter. We've known that certain medicines like prednisone or antidepressants or birth controls can cause you to gain weight, even if you don't change what you eat. And that leads me to the second biggest myth, which is it's all your own fault. I have another patient, she's a good example, she's in her 20s. She came to see me because she's been hungry her entire life. And we gave her a weight loss pill that blocks appetite. And in the first month, she came back to me absolutely thrilled because it was the first time in her entire life that she felt like she wasn't hungry. She's lost about 200 pounds at this point. And we physicians have helped many patients with this type of problem. We've known for a long time that there are hormones and neurotransmitters which are released by the body to tell you when you're full or to tell you to munch on food. If you crave chocolate once a month, you know what I'm talking about.
Once a month, come on.
Daily?
Yes.
Well, I specialize in non-surgical weight loss, and there's lots of different pills we can use to help normalize those neurotransmitters. Studies have also proven that bypass surgery, like the ones that Dr. Vollinger does, actually cause improvements in those neurotransmitters. And so even though he doesn't use any medicines to help with weight loss, the surgery will actually reduce those neurotransmitters and reduce appetite also. So the third major myth is that it's hard to lose weight and keep it off. Now, everyone knows someone who's failed, and that kind of clouds our judgment, but the statistics really show that there's a very good success rate, and patients are doing really well. Dr. Wing at Brown University has collected data on people who've lost a significant amount of weight and kept it off long term, and she's collected the data on what type of habits these people have, and right now she has more than 10,000 patients enrolled. So we know that people have good success rates. Now, I personally have struggled with weight loss, and it's been a lot more difficult for me than for other people, but most of my patients tell me that it's really very easy for them when they follow the right plan.
Well, that was very helpful, because everything you said I thought was true. It just turned out to be false, so got to learn something. Next question's for you, Dr. Bollinger. Okay, and it's along the same lines, a little bit of different twist. So we have an obesity epidemic. I mean, everything's an epidemic, and we've got one in obesity. And I was sort of wondering whether we're fatter collectively than people in other industrialized Western countries, or if that's true, why is it true? Could you kind of illuminate that?
Sure. Unfortunately, we are. And
fatter?
That's the simple. Yes, the United States has the largest, the highest rate of obesity than any of the developed countries.
I guess we are first, after all.
We certainly are first in that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and I think there's a lot of reasons, and I'll back up by giving a few numbers about the problem. It's really dramatic, and if you look at the United States currently, 2/3 of our population is overweight. 1/3 of our population is obese.
What's the difference?
So overweight is, there's a class of obesity, and there's a number we use called a body mass index, or BMI, that doesn't only take into consideration weight, but it takes into consideration height, so it's a more balanced measurement. And if you look at the classes, the body mass index that's considered over 25, you'd be considered in the overweight or class 1 category. If your body mass index is 30 to 35 or 30 to 40, that you're considered in the class 2 or obese category. And if your body mass index is over 40, then you're considered in the class 3 or severe obese category. So what happens in that situation is that the higher BMI, the more likely you are to develop obesity-related medical problems. The type 2 diabetes or glucose intolerance that Dr. Marlowe was mentioning, obstructive sleep apnea, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, a huge list, 60, 70 different diseases related to your obesity. So we've got a real problem. If you extrapolate that 5% severe obese, which we have 5% of our population severely obese.
Over 40 BMI.
Over a 40 BMI, that translates into about 150,000 people in the Charlotte metro area. So if you look at that over time, that's a 75% increase in just the last 20 years. So something's going on, and there's some severe problems. And it's not only in our adult population, but it's in our kids. If you look at our kids, we have almost 20% now of our adolescent population is obese. Almost unheard of. In fact, it's increased to 75% itself over the last 30 years. So what are we doing wrong? And I think it boils down to multiple factors, and hopefully we're going to be talking about some of the solutions to these factors. But I think the whys are certainly the Western diet. Tom alluded to it already, the high sugar, the high fats in our diet. Portion control. You remember remember we used to remember McDonald's when years ago when we grew up. Well, think about it. Think about a small fry. Think about that white bag of small fries. Don't see that anymore. It's the red box. It used to be the large
That's
French fry.
the starter.
Exactly, and that's where we start now. So the types of food that we're eating, the portions that we eat, the high sugar, the high processed. There's not as much. There hasn't been as much emphasis on natural whole foods. It's been what's easy, what's convenient, what's cheap, and in general, that's not the things that are most healthy for you. It's the chocolate cookies, it's the potato chips, it's the fast food. The other big issue is the sedentary society. We've changed the society. Technology has been tremendous. There's a lot of things that computers and TVs and things have done for us to allow us to be more advanced than ever before, but not from a weight loss standpoint. And what happens is we sit in front of the terminals. We're not as active as we used to be. Computer science in a lot of our schools has taken precedence over exercise.
Yes, I
Physical
agree.
activity. And I know we're going to talk about some of that in our schools now, but we've really lost that activity, that exercise, that bent for that in our society. So at the same time, we're not eating as well, we're eating more, we're moving less.
Oh.
And that's just that's a recipe for disaster. And it's why we're having a significant problem. Now, to be honest, while we're number one, there are a lot of countries that are right behind us.
Right.
There are at least 10 countries that have over 20% of a rate of obesity in their country, and Great Britain, Mexico being some examples of that. So we're not alone, and in fact, the World Health Organization has told us that there's about 1.5 billion with the B, overweight people in the world, and about 500 million obese people in the world, not showing any signs of slowing down. While we're fortunate in the United States, the trend has slowed over the last 5 years or so. If you look at the national data, if you look, we just had an article on the front page of the Charlotte Observer this week that said studies have shown we're going to increase from about 37% obese rate to maybe 42% in the next few years.
Yeah.
Real major problem.
Yeah. I've read that article too, and I was a bit surprised because there's been all this emphasis on health and wellness and so on and so forth, so it seems kind of counterintuitive that we're going to get worse before we, I suppose, hopefully get better.
No question. In fact, there are more, for the first time in the history of the world, there are more people with weight issues that are overweight than are underweight and starving.
Oh my gosh.
First time ever in the history of the world because of the changes in our diet and the changes in our lifestyle.
Well, Dr. Mehta, could you tell us more about what goes on here in Mecklenburg County, in Charlotte, in terms of people looking for help with their weight problem? Are there some resources they can take advantage of? Could you tell us a bit about them?
Absolutely. So, you know, Mecklenburg County's done a really good job of realizing that this is a problem and deciding that we need to do something about it. There are a lot of agencies that have taken this on as a task of deciding how they're going to impact the community, how they're going to educate the community, and how they're going to create different programs within our network so that we can improve our children and adults' weight status in this area. I mentioned earlier about Healthy Weight, Healthy Child and the coalition that was formed. So that was a coalition of multiple stakeholders across our county, including schools, healthcare professionals, child care centers, faith-based organizations, local businesses, policymakers, all coming together to say, how are we going to fix this problem? Our children are becoming more obese, and we need to do something about it as soon as we can. And knowing well that it's not just going to be one person or one agency or one sector that's going to be able to fix the problem. And they came up with a blueprint for a healthier generation, which outlines different goals around physical activity and nutrition that we as a community related to Mecklenburg County in specifically, how we can actually address those different issues and work on those different goals. And from that, a lot of different agencies have come up with projects and ideas that can implement activities in different sectors. So certainly on the healthcare side, going to your physician, if you're concerned at all, is definitely important. Walking into the office and saying, I'm concerned about my child's weight, or I'm concerned about my own weight. Can you tell me what I should need to do? Because there are a lot of physicians that are uncomfortable with the subject. Don't feel like they can bring it up, are uncomfortable using the word obese or fat in front of people. You know, parents have a certain level of guilt as well if their child comes in and they're obese, and if you tell them your child is in this overweight or obese category, they may have a certain level of guilt as well.
And so offensive or something.
Exactly. So bringing that up, if you're the person that's actually concerned to your physician, might be that one barrier that you can break if you truly are concerned, because that may give the permission to the physician to talk about it. On the other flip side, we're working as healthcare professionals on better training our physicians to have those conversations, talking about it, addressing it at well visits and physicals, so that people can recognize it early and stop it early, as opposed to waiting till they're a couple 100 pounds overweight and needing to do more intensive treatment or therapy for that. As far as agencies go, Smart Start of Mecklenburg County is working on a program through SHAPE NC. It was a Blue Cross Blue Shield grant that they received, and they're working on the 0 to 5 age group and how to improve the health and wellness of those children, starting at an early age so that we're really focusing on prevention and not waiting until it becomes a big problem.
Right.
Mecklenburg County Fruit and Vegetable Coalition is a group in the county that is based out of the health department, and they're really working on how do we improve the access and consumption of fruits and vegetables in our community. So working on things like school gardens, community gardens, educational campaigns, working with local agriculture to make local produce a little bit more accessible, and then also working with farmers markets to have markets where the produce is available to people with low income that have SNP benefits or EBT cards.
That's all
available
sounds
to them.
wonderful, really does. Hey, so Mecklenburg County is very active.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Okay, so now I have a question for all three of you, and I think I know what the answer is before I ask the question, but I'll ask it anyway. I mean, there are all sorts of remedies for overweight, obesity, and so on, and they range from diet and exercise, which I suppose helps the most, but medications, which tend to have side effects from what I've heard, and in extreme cases or very serious cases, bariatric surgery. And I'm sort of wondering what combination or what element of all of these remedies, in your estimation, works the best, and we'll see what you say about that. And in your experience, what do your patients seem to want? You know, when I talk to a lot of my women friends, it's always like, oh, a pill that lets you eat as much as you want and you never gain weight, basically. I mean, that's the American way. You know, there must be a pill that does that. So let's start with Dr. Marlowe.
Well, one approach doesn't fit every person. I had mentioned earlier about the National Weight Control Registry, which looks at people who have succeeded long-term with losing a substantial amount of weight, and that's spearheaded at Brown. What Dr. Wing found out was that people have all succeeded in different ways. And so some patients followed a low-fat diet, and some followed a low-carb diet. Some of them counted points. Some of them had surgery. Some of them used diet pills. The majority of them needed a weight loss program to succeed. When someone chooses their weight loss program, I would ask them to be sure to look for a program that tailors itself to their own needs, both medical and individual needs. So for my patients, what we do is we figure out what each person needs as an individual in order to give them the best plan, combining healthy eating with the physical exercise and medication if they wish. As a result, I'm proud to say that we have the second highest success rate of the medical weight loss, which is 88.7%.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Dr. Bollinger.
Yeah, I think that first of all, the key that I think we would all say is that prevention is ultimately what we're all about. I mean, I think our job should be to get each other out of business. That's where we are. I mean, ultimately,
that's very generous of you.
Well, you know, ultimately, that's you know, it's about educating about the disease, raising awareness for what the disease can cause, and I think that's an important statement. Is that we really look at obesity as a chronic disease. It's not something you can cure. It's something we can put in remission. It's something that a patient's going to have to live with for their entire life. And it's also not as simple as a magic pill or a magic plan or a magic herb. It is a multifactorial disease caused by genetics, environment, social, psychology. It's all these things, multifactorial, wrapped up into one. So we have to attack it from all sides. I think the foundation of everything that we do is lifestyle management. It gets back to nutrition, eating healthy, exercise and activity, and not just working out at the gym, but parking farther, just being more active during the day. And then lastly, modifying the behavior, changing the bad habits into good habits, modifying that. So that's the foundation for how we treat the chronic disease. Then there are tools we can put on top of it. Dr. Marlowe is a specialty in medical management. There are certainly certain medications that can help control appetite or or improve your glucose metabolism, things that we can do for medically. And that typically is for patients that, it can be for any patient, but certainly the majority would be for those more in the obese category, the class 2, maybe early class 3 that we discussed earlier. And then my particular specialty, being bariatric surgery, is primarily reserved for those patients, as you suggested, that have more severe weight issues. That body mass index is over 40. They have high blood pressure. They have sleep apnea. They have some significant issues where they've tried lifestyle management. They've tried maybe medical management, and ultimately they need a tool, a very aggressive tool. We like to call it giving them mechanical willpower. Where we actually are able to change their anatomy to allow them either to control their portion or control their hunger, or in some cases actually allow them to not absorb as many calories. So that we're very aggressive, safely aggressive, but these are for those folks who have really have the risk or are going to have the risk that need more aggressive treatment.
Well, typically, how much would such a person weigh? Or
in general, they're roughly 100 pounds overweight. Again, we kind of take the height and the weight, but the average person we would operate on, the average man is probably about 300 pounds. The average woman is probably about 230, 240. We've operated on folks that weigh as much as 600-700 pounds.
Oh my gosh!
And certainly that's an extreme situation. But you know, data shows that a patient that has that type of severe obesity or has severe obesity really has about a 20% chance of not being with us in 10 years. I mean, for things like heart attacks, things like strokes, all the things, the ravages that diabetes can bring. It is a severe, life-threatening chronic disease, which is why we feel like it has to be treated as a primary disease for all our primary care physicians.
Right. Dr. Mader, do you want to add something?
Yeah, certainly I'd echo the word that you said first, which is prevention, prevention, prevention. We really need to work hard on teaching people at a young age how to move their bodies and eat well, and understanding that exercise as a child is just going outside and playing. Getting outdoors, using that energy that you already have and not putting it into TV, and letting them be creative with it. And then also teaching people how to feed their children nutritious foods, going back to breastfeeding, going to eating proper portions, not going out to eat, not drinking the soda, not putting soda in bottles for their little babies, and working on teaching those to the medical providers as well, so that we're comfortable having those conversations from a very young age.
What I just thought of was the role of the food industry or the restaurant industry and all of this queuing to have huge portions and so on. I mean, there have been some efforts like to list the calories and so on, but what I've read is that people, when they see that they still get what they want or what's available, that it doesn't basically scare them or shame them into not having the 8 pancakes or whatever. And parental role, and it's very, very complex to me. That gets back just to a little minute on the childhood. You had already mentioned the childhood obesity problem, and any of you, please feel free to comment on children. I mean, with all these kids getting diabetes, but type 2, which used to be never with kids, or very, very rare. What's that all about?
We're certainly seeing it more and more often. Kids are becoming more obese. We have young ones that are hitting a couple 100 pounds weight, and they're getting diabetes, and we're seeing it, and we're not really sure how to manage it quite yet because we haven't broached that subject these days. But kids are an interesting population. They don't know how to make informed decisions for themselves. If you put them in front of a plate of broccoli or a chocolate cake, they're going to pick the chocolate cake. They don't know that, someday down the line I might get diabetes or heart disease, or I might not be able to work because I'm on disability. They don't think like that. They just know, I like chocolate cake and I'm going to eat it. And so it's really the responsibility of everyone around them to make sure that they're doing the proper things. And that comes to everyone. That's parents, that's schools, that's the food industry as well. If they're inundated by their favorite fictional character on television telling them that they have to have this sugary cereal or have to drink that soda, they're going to beg for it, they're going to scream for it, they're going to cause chaotic
I
ruckus
know I
in the
used
grocery
to,
store.
Tony the Tiger was for Frosted Flakes,
Flakes.
was, you know,
Exactly.
my buddy. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Time is kind of running out, and I was hoping we could have some take-home messages from each of you. And I think I'll just go right down the line here. So, Dr.
Sure.
Bollinger?
Well, you know, I think the key message I'd like to give today is that we have to do something. Obesity is an epidemic. It's a chronic disease. It is taking years off our lives. It is taking years off our children's lives. So it's something we have to address seriously. It all starts with prevention on a local level, in the home, on a community level, in our schools, on a national level with our restaurateurs, our farmers, the farm-to-table movement. There's so many things that we can do to be helpful. So prevention, but then when it comes to treatment, I think Thomas says it very well. We need to individualize the therapy to the patient.
Yeah.
We need to take each person has a different lifestyle, different perspective, and then use everything we have in our arsenal. And and the hope is, and what we have a lot of hope because there are so many. The FDA has 3 new anti-obesity drugs in front of them now. We have new technologies like microlaparoscopy, robotic surgery, single incision, a lot of exciting things, even incisionless surgery. That we have those tools that are going to be able to treat the disease, so that ultimately we're going to be able to educate and raise awareness enough so we can prevent it from happening to start with.
Dr. Mader, very quickly.
So my take home is that this is everyone's problem, even if you're at a healthy weight or if you're overweight or obese. And my messages to families would be, have family meals together, learn how to prepare good, healthy foods that are actually tasty, because they can be tasty.
Yes.
Go outside and play with your kids. And as a community, really think about how your role as a community member, as a citizen, could potentially be used as an impact to childhood obesity and adult obesity.
Yeah, and Dr. Marlowe.
Well, I think Dr. Mehta and Dr. Bollinger did a great job of summarizing the major points, so I don't have much to add to that. I will make one comment, though, which I wanted to give compliments, and I'm very proud of one of the initiatives that we're doing. Deb Kaslick, she is the director for Charlotte Mecklenburg School System for children PE and art. And Dr. Mehta and I and many other physicians, along with Deb Kaslick, are working to bring physical education back to the school system as a requirement. And it's our game plan to spearhead that as part of the Democratic National Convention, so that we can have that as something that will then first Charlotte representing it to the rest of the nation, and then for the rest of the nation to take on from there.
Oh, great. And that will really make Charlotte a world-class city, finally. Okay, well, thank you, all 3 of you. It was really wonderful having this conversation.